Thank you for coming. It is my pleasure to introduce Sara Lundeen. I'm Dr. Fox. I got to work with her on this honors project. And Sara is the daughter of Randall and Malia Lundeen from Axtell, Nebraska. And Malia is here to see this. She's a graduate of Axtell High School, and she majors in history and minors in Spanish, communication studies, and international studies. And she's going to graduate in a week. A John G. Neidhart Scholarship recipient, Sara has been on the Dean's List every semester and has received the Outstanding Student in History Award. She is a member of Alpha Lambda Delta and Phi Kappa Phi. She has served as a committee head of the Philomathian President's Honor Society, which is also keeping me busy this weekend, and treasurer and vice president of the Spanish Club, president of Phi Alpha Theta for the second year, right? And vice president and president of Pi Gamma Mu. She also was a semifinalist for the Fulbright ETA to Argentina, and last night received the Ron Holt Civic Engagement Award. So as you can tell, she's been very busy. On a more personal note, working with Sara over these last 4 years, she's the kind of student that makes professors excited when they see she's on the roster for the coming class. She always arrives prepared, asks great questions, even the kind where once I finish discussing a text with the class, say, does anybody else have other questions about it? Flips through her notes, says, on this particular line, this word is used. Does it mean this or that? So she keeps us on her toes. All of which is a wonderful thing. I hope you enjoy this presentation. Sara, go ahead.
I actually had a difficult time coming up with an honors project. I pondered on it throughout my junior year in the summer, but when I returned, I didn't have a clear vision. I thought of how songs like The Baptism of the Republic and O Holy Night were abolitionists in sentiment, and eventually, through conversations with Dr. Fox, I landed on the project you see today, Musical Movements, Songs of 19th Century Nationalism and Abolitionism. The historiography of the 1800s does not often consider nationalism and abolitionism parallel movements, and I wanted to see how they converged and diverged through their manifestations through song. My analysis uncovered that songs diverged in important ways but had many similar themes and imagery. While nationalist songs tended to exclude other people, abolitionist songs were more universalist, but both groups perpetuated narratives of progress about their movements. Before diving into my findings, I must first explain some of the foundational concepts of my research. Firstly, nationalism is a tricky topic to define. Many scholars have tried with varying degrees of consensus. I do not believe mine will be the definite definition, but will hopefully give you some understanding. Modern conceptions of the nation is as a form of kinship and identity, how people group and conceive of themselves. Nationalism involves the beliefs about the nation. It posits that the nation should be the primary goal and identity of its members. Everything they do should be for the benefit of the nation. The idea that one's nation is best often puts nations at odds with each other. Abolitionism was an international movement dedicated to the eradication of racialized slavery. In the 19th century, most countries and empires around the world gradually abolished slavery. The United States was particularly conflicted and vocal on these issues. The primary abolitionists in America were free and enslaved blacks, whose cause was the movement, women who often saw parallels to their own situations, and outspoken Christians who believed slavery was inherently at odds with the gospel. Abolitionists used various media, including periodicals and songbooks, to push for liberty. While the American movement originally took a gradualistic approach, abolitionists became increasingly confrontational and demanded immediate emancipation. Song in the 19th century is not exactly like it is today. There was no radio or audio recordings until the very end of the century. People learned new songs through paper media like pamphlets, songbooks, sheet music, broadsides, and touring musicians and performances. For this project, I analyzed 21 songs, 9 of which were abolitionist, 9 nationalist, and 2 which significantly lended to both movements. The nationalist songs come from all over the world and across the 19th century. International abolitionist songs were harder to find, and only 2 I could get in English have origins outside the United States. Songs of abolition were most popular from the 1830s to the 1860s. I will first discuss the composition of these songs, meaning their external properties that have nothing to do with their lyrics. As I stated earlier, people learn songs through paper media. Sometimes original compositions accompanied the lyrics. This required sheet music to explain how the song goes. A common alternative was to write different lyrics for an existing tune that most people were already familiar with. These often included folk, patriotic, and religious songs. For example, America, aka My Country 'Tis of Thee, has the same tune as God Save the King. Nationalist songs tended to have original music. Sometimes someone took an existing instrumental piece and wrote words to it. Sometimes someone wrote original music for an existing poem. Usually, however, the lyrics and music came about simultaneously. Here you can see the Irish song, A Nation Once Again, and the Belgian anthem, La Brabançon, accompanied by their scores. Abolitionist songs were more varied in their tunes. For the most part, lyricists wrote according to existing popular songs. You can see that here in Back, Oh Send It Back, a Scottish song opposing American slaveholders, which is set to the tune of Rest, Warrior, Rest. This was a cheap, easier option for the everyday songwriter. Others wrote poems without any specified tune or accompaniment. However, some indication existed that the song was intended to be sung. A few songs had original music like Oh Holy Night, shown in this songbook from 1875 as Christmas Song. The practice of using existing tunes means that many songs sound the same with different words. One such example is Song of the Abolitionist and the original version of the Korean anthem, Ayabukuga. William Lloyd Garrison was one of the most prominent abolitionists in the United States. He wrote the song in the early 1840s to the Scottish tune Auld Lang Syne, the song most famous for being sung at New Year's.
I am an abolitionist, then urge me not to pause, for joyfully I do enlist in freedom's sacred cause. A nobler strife the world ne'er saw, than slaves to disenthrall. I am a soldier for the war, whatever may befall.
Now this next song is the South Korean national anthem, written in 1896 by an unknown author. The modern musical accompaniment was composed in 1936, but until then, people sang it to the tune of Auld Lang Syne. So, as you could hear, the two songs, with little in common lyrically, share the same tune. This was common in 19th-century songs. Both movements included some female authors, but abolitionists tended to have more diversity in songwriters. Of the songs I analyzed, only two nationalist ones were written by women, and the Battle Hymn of the Republic by Julia Ward Howe also has abolitionist sentiment. He Mele Lauihi Hawaii was written and composed in 1866 by Lili Uokalani, later Queen of Hawaii, after King Kamehameha V asked her to produce a national air. The other national songs have male authors. Abolitionist songs had a variety of songwriters. Sometimes authors used pseudonyms or went uncredited. However, many women attached their names to songs denouncing slavery. Two of the abolitionist songs I analyzed had female authors, and I discovered many others. One, the American Female Slave, calls upon white women to feel empathy for their enslaved sisters, who suffered bodily harm and trauma when their families were ripped from them. Unsurprisingly, black people also wrote abolitionist songs. Joshua Simpson, born free in Ohio, was a prolific songwriter. Other lyrics claim origins in slave songs. When published, the Plantation Song asserted that newly arrived African slaves sang the song in chain gangs. Next, I analyzed the lyrics themselves for similarities and differences in themes, imagery, and terminology. terminology. Religion was prominent in nationalism and abolitionism. Religion could serve as a unifying factor in nation building and maintenance. Could being an important word. Arguments for and against slavery took on religious justification, but the abolitionists really rallied behind the idea that slavery was opposed to Christian ethics. Not all nationalist songs referenced religion, but many did. In the nationalist songs, the authors often asked God, usually if not always the Christian one, to bless and protect the nation. Many countries also believed that God supported their independence, either the movements for or the continuation of. This painting depicts a battle in a Chilean war for independence, and a church is prominent in the background. The abolitionist songs were often explicitly religious. They were written as hymns and prayers to God. The songwriters viewed slavery as evil and sinful, and they asked God to end slavery. They depicted the abolitionists and later Union soldiers as righteous warriors of God, who was often leading the charge. They often referenced and quoted the Bible. For example, who in God's sight is holy? The author quotes Jesus Christ on the cross, saying, "Forgive them, they know not what they do." This masthead of the Liberator, edited by William Lloyd Garrison, depicts Christ with the words, "I come to break the bonds of the oppressor." Militaristic, self-sacrificial, and loyal concepts prevail in nationalism and abolitionism. Songwriters for nationalist movements expressed commitment to fight literal battles for the nation. They stated their desire to serve and defend the land and nation. The nationalist songs also demonstrated a willingness to live and die for the nation. When alive, they would work for the betterment and honor of the country. They often considered it an honor or at least their duty to die for the nation. The Philippine anthem, originally called Filipinas, claims that it is a glory for your sons to die for you, meaning the Philippines. The image here is of Filipino rebels in the late 19th, early 20th century. The authors declared the people's eternal loyalty to the nation. For example, the Estonian Mu Isama Mu Unyarun states that Estonians will stand by you, Estonia, until death. Abolitionists also expressed commitment to fight figurative battles against slavery. Later, they supported actual war against slaveholders and rebels. The image here depicts a battle in the Civil War. As I stated earlier, abolitionists viewed themselves as righteous warriors. They used violent vocabulary against slavery, saying it must die, they must break it, crush it, and lay the monster low. In this political cartoon, Abraham Lincoln is cutting down the slavery tree. Abolitionists also expressed a willingness to sacrifice much to achieve freedom for all people. For some, this involved total dedication to the cause. In the Battle Hymn of the Republic, however, Howe is more literal, saying, "Let us die to make men free." While you would readily expect slavery imagery in terms in abolitionist songs, songs in both movements utilize this theme. Recurring words in nationalist songs include freedom, liberty, slavery, oppression, chains, fetters, and tyrant. The Belgian anthem, for example, declares, "The years of slavery are past." The Venezuelan song, Gloria al Bravo Pueblo, incorporates many of these terms in its commendation of the people for rebelling against the oppression and tyranny of Spain. In this Venezuelan poem, the female figure has the word libertad in her hair, which means liberty. Abolitionists use all of the same terms nationalists did and more. However, their uses were usually more literal. The chains and fetters were metal, not mental. Abolitionist songwriters also discussed the torture and hardships slaves endured. Scourge, whip, and blood are recurring images. A scourge is a multi-thonged whip designed to inflict excruciating pain. This image, known as the scourged back photo, was among the most circulated in the abolitionist movement. The songs often noted the racialized nature of slavery and freedom. America, a Parody, for example, notes that all men are born free in the United States, if white their skin. Numerous songs, usually of female or black origin, highlight the practice of breaking up family units. This image here depicts a mother with her daughter at a slave auction. The nationalist and abolitionist movements diverge in their approach to the inclusivity of groups. Nationalist songs tended to be exclusive of others. The nation has clear-cut members. It cannot include everyone, otherwise it would lose the point of its existence, to bind certain people together and not others. One way nationalist songs demonstrate this tendency for exclusivity is territoriality. The songs focus on the physical space and land. Territoriality also manifests as descriptions of the land's physical geography. Ayagupka, for example, identifies the geographic features of the East Sea and Mount Baekdu, placing the nation within a physical plane. The Egyptian anthem Baladi refers to Egyptian soil and the Nile. Nationalist songs also displayed mutual possessiveness. Authors wrote of my homeland, our great country, my fatherland, but they also included thy country and your sons. Therefore, the people belong to the nation, and the nation belongs to the people. Some of the songs also display a national spirit or conscience. They consider themselves distinct. Ayagupka discusses a great Korean way and spirit, and Himno Nacional de Chile speaks of how former Chilean soldiers live on in the hearts of future Chileans. The political cartoon here depicts the breakup between Belgium and Holland, showing how these groups were thought of as distinct and deservingly separate. Abolitionist songs tended to be more inclusive, although they had some exclusive language. Abolitionist songwriters stressed and encouraged empathy in readers and listeners. They focused on the humanity of everyone, pushing that all were brothers and sisters. In the Song of the Abolitionist, William Lloyd Garrison declares that his country is the wide, wide world, and his countrymen mankind. These images demonstrate the abolitionists' more inclusive view of humanity with blacks and whites intermixed. Even so, the songs often delineated an enemy. The songwriters villainized slaveholders, defenders of slavery in the South, and Confederate soldiers. However, the songs never deemed them unredeemable, making clear attempts to sway their positions and asking God to enlighten them. One song that shows the inclusivity-exclusivity conundrum is 1864's The Battle Cry of Freedom by George F. Root. This was the other song that I placed in both nationalist and abolitionist camps. The lyrics you will hear demonstrate an open approach, but with boundaries. This recording is from 1907, hence the sound quality.
We are bringing to the call of our brothers long before. Now keep the vessel dry and free, and we fill the vacant ranks with the million seamen war. Now keep the vessel dry and free, the Union forever for all, while for all. Now will the paper, all will the star, while we rally round the flag, boys rally once again. Now keep the vessel dry and free. We will welcome to our numbers the loyal, true, and brave. Now keep the vessel dry and free, and although the may be poor, not a man shall be a slave. Now keep the vessel dry and free, the Union forever, for all, white for all. Long will the Quaker, long will the star, while we rally round the flag, boys rally once again. Now keep the vessel dry and free.
So the lyrics show an openness to blacks and a desire to incorporate them into the group. Even so, the glorification of the Union at the expense of the traitor illustrates a limit to this inclusivity. Songs in the nationalist and abolitionist movements perpetuate narratives of progress. We often take the idea of progress for granted. People assume that all of history is a series of progressive steps, meaning that modernity is inherently better than the past. The narrative of progress posits that humanity is forever bettering itself through innovation and change. This is a presentist view of history, assuming that the present is the apex and the future will be better. This is an interpretation of history, not necessarily a fact. One could as reasonably interpret history as a worsening of humanity, or simply the changes, neither good nor bad, that humanity undergoes. Nonetheless, I argue that nationalist and abolitionist songs perpetuate narratives of progress. The songwriters in nationalism and abolitionism believe that the world was becoming a better place because of their movements. Humanity was bettered because nations exist and because slavery was going to end. The past was backward, but the things the lyricists write about moved the world forward. Nationalist songs often describe the past as being ruled by tyranny. The ones desiring independent and sovereign nations considered themselves oppressed. Even those who did not lament past tyranny imply that the current form of the nation was better than previous. In the present, the nation exists, and that is a good thing. The songs posit that independence and rights are long-standing and natural. These things have been denied by others, but naturally belong to them. For example, Thomas Davis's Irish song focuses on how Ireland, long a province, should be a nation once again, implying that the nation was an ancient institution suppressed from expression. The songs also depict the nation as the ultimate and best form of political grouping. They basically say, wrap up, everybody else can go home, the nation is the best and always will be. The songs insinuate that the zenith has been reached. As such, the nation is, in its perhaps idealized current form, deserves to exist forever and will only further prosper. Belgium will have glorious years, Chile has future splendor, and Egypt is a most precious jewel shining on the brow of eternity. The nation is great and will only get better. Abolitionist songs describe the past and present as oppressive, inhuman, and evil. Slavery is an abomination against God and holds the United States back from further greatness. One of the songwriter's most progressive arguments was that Black people were human. This is obvious to us, but not everyone agreed. People other than slaveholders thought Black people were subhuman and incapable of any productivity if not forced to work. To these people, emancipating the slaves would be a backward and disastrous move. Abolitionist songs, sympathetic and inclusive language, incorporated enslaved Blacks into humanity, a step the songwriters believed was righteous and good. The songs also express certainty in the abolition of slavery. They portrayed it as inevitable, but must be hurried along by people. For example, Slavery is a Hard Foe to Battle discusses how the day is drawing nigh that slavery must die. O Holy Night states that all oppression shall cease. Abolitionist songs also argue that the country will improve with the abolition of slavery. The United States will have better morals and finally live up to its ideals of freedom. Slavery is a Hard Foe to Battle wants to give every man his right, woman too. From a 21st century perspective, we agree that with the abolitionists that ending slavery was a good thing. So we do not really question that narrative of progress. However, nationalism is a more slippery slope. We can see that while national identities can be beneficial, they can also be harmful, even genocidal. The breakup of Yugoslavia, for example, saw numerous crimes against humanity in the name of national and ethnic identity. Also, we now see that nations are just another way of grouping people and organizing states. They are one option among many, and arguments can be made that they're not even the best solution. In conclusion, nationalism and abolitionism are not often thought of together, but analyzing songs from these movements results in significant comparisons. Nationalist and abolitionist songs share many themes, including religion, militarism, and slavery. While the movements diverged in the inclusivity of groups, they narrated their own sense of progress. I will now open the floor for questions. Thank you for your time.